Hey, ladies and gentlemen. So now this is Professor Smaldone again, and we're going to talk about this Verdi example. Now, this is. So that's the first two lines. And what we have is 1 5 1. That's all we have. 1 5 1. But instead of going directly to the 5, we have this other chord, which is the common tone diminished seventh chord. You can tell that it's the common tone diminished seventh chord because the note that's in the bass is in the diminished seventh chord, B, D, F, and A flat. Now, technically, you might say this is a diminished seventh chord that's supposed to resolve to C. Well, it kind of does, but that's not the point. The point is that it carries over the note that's in the bass, and we have the common tone between the chord and the diminished seventh chord. That's the opposite of this diminished seventh chord in the Verdi, in which case the G is in the bass, but F sharp, the leading tone to G, is in the diminished seventh chord. And remember, once you have one note, all you need is one note of the diminished seventh chord, and you automatically know what the other ones are. How you spell it is another thing, but you'll always know what the chord needs to be. This is F sharp, A, C, and as I said in the other video, I really think that should be an E flat. But with these kinds of diminished seventh chords, with both the pedal tone diminished seventh chord and with the common tone diminished seventh chord, composers are liable to simply use a spelling that's convenient because it doesn't really resolve the way that a normal 7 diminished seventh chord is going to resolve. So that's all that's going on in this part. Now, what's interesting about this is that after we have established there we are. And that is a PAC, which establishes the key of F major. So all we have is an F major. We have the one chord. We have the common tone diminished 7. And then we have the 5 chord. And then we have the 1 chord. I mean, then we just had that progression again. The 1, we're going to call this the common tone diminished 7. And then we're going to go to the 5, and then back to the 1. Now, the common tone diminished seventh will often resolve back to the same chord, perhaps from the F major chord to the 7 diminished seventh chord that has F in it, and then back. That's possible. In this case, so in this case, he moves on to the 5 chord. The common tone diminished seventh still relates to this F chord. Something I mentioned in class was that each of these notes on the downbeat is a non-harmonic tone. This one's an appoggiatura. This one is really an accented passing tone. This one is well, it's really kind of an incomplete neighbor tone, which is what an appoggiatura is. But they are all non-chord tone, non-chord tone, non-chord tone. In each case, this is also an appoggiatura. So that the D in the first measure is not part of the F chord. I'm going to put this down at the keyboard so you can see. So the D is not in the chord. That E in measure 2 is not in the diminished seventh chord that's in common with the F chord, and that D is a non-harmonic tone resolving down to the C, which is in the C7 chord, B flat is also not in the chord. So that happens all the way through that. And then the next part of this discussion that makes this a really wonderful example is how Verdi goes from F major, and then he goes... So he's got this... So he's doing this downward step, da 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 dum da da dum da da, and here he's got, this is the 5 6 4 3. So we're gonna call it the 5 4 3. I guess we're gonna identify it. We put a 6 and a slash through it because the 6th is the C sharp, and that's the note that is accented. So that's a 5 4 3 of D minor that goes to a D minor chord. So are we going to call this an applied chord, or is this a chord that gets us to a new key? And the answer to that depends on what happens next. What happens next is that we get this phrase, and when we get to this part, I hear that very clearly as a 5 chord. And in fact, when we get to this chord, we get to an A chord, which is treated to its own 5 4 3 of 5, followed by a 5 6, followed by a 1 chord, followed by a 5, meaning that this is a kind of half cadence in the key of D minor. Well, how far back did we feel we were in D minor? Well, I would say it's all the way over here. So that this dominant chord in the key of D minor is kind of treating this F chord as if it were a 3 chord, 3 2 1, F E D. And then we have a 1 chord, and then a 5 chord, and then another 5 4 3, and a 1 chord, and then the 5, and then this is a little expansion of the 5, where we have this A. That's all A, but it's the 5 chord. And we would expect it to go back to a D minor chord, but Verdi simply goes, he charges, right back into F major with a 1 chord, and then repeats the same progression again, the same one that he had at the beginning. So it's... There's the F major. 5. We might expect that, but he kind of leaves us hanging with the 5 of D minor, that half cadence. So we have an expression of F, followed by an expression of D minor, followed by an expression of F. So that's the nature of tonicization versus an applied chord. When we have just one little chord, for example, back in the Schubert, this 7 diminished 7 chord of B doesn't change the function of B. B does not become the tonic. We still hear B very clearly as the 5. We hear that as 5. And then he does a couple of things. We still hear that as 5 all the way through. That half cadence extended like that, which makes that chord an applied 7 diminished 7 as opposed to a tonicization. The same with this chord over here. This is a 5 7 of A minor, that goes very clearly to an A minor chord, but the A minor chord is not the tonic. It does not get its own cadence. It does not get a PAC or an HC or anything. We just have the A minor chord as part of a progression that's on its way to G. So that's an applied chord. And then over here in Verdi, we have a tonicization of D minor. It's learning to hear the difference between a tonicization and an applied chord that is going to be a very important part of how you're going to be able to succeed with analysis. So we'll keep working on that. Make sure you understand these points. Okay, see you soon.